another kid that decided to do all of it together. He made one book, and he's been using crazy duct tape to stick them all together.
Nice.
And then now when he took the quiz, he tabbed them. And he's like into orange, and if you see him today, he's completely orange. It's very cute.
Right.
So there's variations on the theme.
And then we also talked about, you know, how
Visuals.
they realized, you know, the different experiments and how that created the color and things too. So just going through what everything that we did.
Carla's learning all about it.
No, it's so exciting. So Elizabeth, what I wanted to do right now is just kind of look at your assessment test piece here, and then those questions that I had shared with you. We're just going to point out some data points and trends
Okay.
we want to focus on and touch on for the kids learning.
Okay, so like the test that we just gave.
Yes.
So I have a student here that I read through his assessment, and this is a gentleman that, how do I want to put it, needs a little extra help. And when I read his question, he's got a brilliant answer, and it came to this other part, and we're talking about litmus paper acids and bases, and he wrote and it's cute, to find the three colorless solutions is to put one of each litmus paper that are not contaminated into the solutions. And they actually did this experiment. After this, you will look at the colors that they change into. Here's an example. The litmus paper was blue before I put it into the solution. When it came back out, it was red. This means that it is an acid. Beautiful. Then when I went and read it, next one it says, this is the same for the red litmus paper blue he put, but this would mean it was an acid. And I said, okay, Matt, read this to me. And he read it, and he went, oh. And I said, go ahead and fix it. I didn't want to give him that grade.
Right.
So I made a note to myself. Okay. Then, so what did I have? What modification? What did I do? I just gave him another chance. And this is a kid that I've had meetings with. I know he knows it. He made a simple error. Not, you got it wrong. Reread it. Oh, because I knew he knew it. I mean, look at how brilliant he did the first part. He knows the information. So it was
Formative piece then too.
Right. And Carla and I kind of let them choose whether they were ready for the test or not, because they're kind of self-pacing a little bit. Some of the kids were ready, some of them weren't. So, which again, we talked about, that might not be the greatest idea, because then if you have half of the kids reviewing and half of the kids testing, that desire to chat with your neighbor is overwhelming, and so they start to chat and interrupt the other kids. So this mistake could have been because he was distracted by other kids that were talking when they shouldn't have been. And then, okay, so that, and then I had another girl that drew this whole chart. I don't know what I did with it. And I had to have, oh, it's right here. I just set it aside. And I said, okay, read what you wrote and explain. And I told her, I'm not sure what your check marks and your X's mean. And so she explained it to me. And I said, now, if it's red litmus paper, what happens if it's a base? And she said, nothing. If it's red litmus, or, Anyway, red litmus paper turns blue if it's an acid. Blue litmus paper turns red. And I just said that backwards. Anyway, you're making me nervous.
You're doing good. Yeah, you're doing good.
Anyway,
So, but I'm gonna just remind you that you can pretend we're invisible too. We're just observing. This can look like your normal
just a bunch of
coaching
trees.
conversation.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of
Okay.
trees.
So
Okay.
just talk to Carla now.
okay.
Yeah.
So I had her explain it to me, and she totally gets it. And then she just rewrote the sentence. And I think, again, that was because there was distractions. Then this 11 up came back to me,
Yeah, I'm sure.
and it says, oh, you did. So
Yeah.
I can't do the group thing anymore. Either I'm working with the wrong group, or I just need a real teacher. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really understand this whole chapter. I know I'm really late, but I guess I was just going through the motions. And then when she put the stupid girl, I'm like, knock it off! Yeah, I totally got into her about that. So I said, what do you have first period? She said she has reading interventions. I said, well, maybe I can pull you during a reading intervention, because this is reading. And what are they working on? Informal text, informational text. This can't get any more informational than it already is.
Right.
So what I do...
So let's put a little note on there, though, Elizabeth, so that we can kind of put this to the side, because we want to make sure that we...
Oh, gosh.
that we meet with her and make sure that she's progressing the way that
Got
she
it.
needs
And
to
I will
be
definitely meet with her.
progressing. Yeah.
So there's another student, very similar, that needs that teacher. So this is her the workbook / textbook. Now this little example down here, she has nothing filled in because she did that to me verbally. We did it orally. I got the droppers and the food coloring and the water, and we made a concentration or a solution or a dilute solution and a concentration solution. I showed it to her, and she told me. So I can tell this is my purple pen. I did it. Or she colored it in. I remember that we did it together. Now this next, so that's what I'll do with this other girl that needs my help. Now if you look at all the pencil on here, that's all me. I'm going through this with this individual student because she's not being successful in her group. You know, she's not one of those kids that can just say, okay, can you help me with this? She needs someone to, she's a little more needy. And so this is what I'll do with this other student that says, I just don't get it. Well, I'll sit down. You don't have to write it. I'll be your personal secretary. I'll write it. You just tell me. Let's make it. Here's the food coloring. Here's the water. You do it. Show me that you understand what an acid is as opposed to a base.
Right.
What are the differences?
Right.
And sometimes you just have to say, you don't have to understand it. Like, what does this pH scale mean? Well, it's just a visualization of something that you can't visualize. You can't visualize an acid. You can't visualize a basic. What's going on a molecular level? So this is just a visual. And I have to remind the kids that, you know, you don't have to understand it. Just follow the pattern.
Right.
And know that if the litmus paper turns red, it's an acid.
Yeah.
And if it turns dark, it's a base.
Right.
Period. And they neutralize one another. Great. Okay, now you know all this stuff. But anyway, so what else do we have to work on?
Then
See,
let's
I could
look
talk
back
for
at, the,
forever.
at their test. So then.
Okay, so those I didn't finish correcting. So tests. That's not it. It is
Oh, that's the
either.
quizzes.
Okay.
So.
Oh, then I noticed this one that I corrected last night, and it's funny because Anthony said, "Can I have my test?" And this was on top, and I wrote this little love note. I said, "Anthony, I think you rushed through this. Please ask if you need help." And this again,
Right.
we both came to the conclusion was a matter of being distracted by the kids around him. So we learn through our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever let them take the test everybody's got to be testing at the same time, or separate them, or they're too social. Brompton's a little different in that they know each other so well because they've been
Right.
together, the same group of kids, and they never get mixed up. So they are so comfortable with one another that they're so highly distracted by one another, and they're
Right.
good buddies. So he even asked, "Can I redo this? Can I redo this?" And I'm like, "Sure."
That's good reflection on both him and you. So he fixed after the neutralization of salt and water would be left. Yes. So he fixed
Because he
that.
didn't put what type of products were for, and I could tell this is a kid who knows it. He's a brilliant kid, but he didn't answer the whole thing.
Right. Did who's this one? Did
I didn't give these back
okay.
because I knew we
Okay.
need them for today.
So then this one is going to work on we're gonna put a little flag on there because that's that salt and
Salt and water, and I came to the conclusion again because so many kids were missing the point that when an acid and base combine and neutralize one another, the products that are left are water and a salt, not sodium chloride necessarily,
Right.
but a salt.
and a lot of them were getting that they neutralized, but they
Yay.
just missed that other piece.
And my conclusion that I came to that when they got to this point, I told them to cross out the water because here we go. Here's a drawing of mine again. Because it's asking what's the salt remaining. So to help them to focus on the salt, I crossed off the water. So I think they carried that over from the fact that Mrs. Williams crossed off the water in my book. They didn't realize that they forgot the water part completely. Am I right? I don't know. That's my theory, but I can say, class, now why did so many of you just put a salt?
Right.
Why did you leave out water? It's always water and a salt.
Right. And that's that formative piece then that you're going to take, seeing, okay, this assessment, this is how they missed that part, so we're going to meet again, discuss, talk.
I just
share.
said,
Very
don't
good.
forget about the water part.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so this one, they got the salt and the water, and for their answers here, doesn't sugar and water make it clear? So, can you tell me about this one?
Okay, so colloid, a colloid solute is small and undissolved. Okay, and do not settle. while a suspension solute is large and floating, as if suspended in the solvent, because I use that word suspension. And a solution has all of the solute dissolved. And I put, what do you mean? A solution has all the solute dissolved? Because a colloid.
Piece.
Well, and a colloid has all the solute dissolved.
They do.
As well.
Yeah, they do.
So what do you mean? And so I put a question mark. And then she put a colloid as sugar and water. Well, doesn't sugar and water make a clear solution? Especially if you change the variable of heat. It's going to absorb more of the sugar. And it's going to break down the molecular structure of the sugar. So
what can we do with this student to help them understand that?
Talk about it. Colloid.
Doing that visual representation.
Here you go. This is a solution. This is a solution too. Same exact thing. What have we changed? What variable? Well, we've pumped it through full of air.
Right.
This doesn't scatter light. Now this does scatter light.
Which created that.
And when she said, in a solvent, and a solution has all of this. And a solution has all the solute dissolved. Right. But they need to say
the solute and the solvent have dissolved.
Well, the solute dissolves in the solute dissolves in the solvent. Yeah. So that's another. And she needs to tell me that it's evenly distributed throughout, and that it remains usually transparent rather than opaque like a colloid.
Okay, so then that is a section.
And I can do these individually, and that's okay because
we'll see if we have another person that can fit with one of those two.
But I think overall, I'm like,
yeah. So
and this one, perfect answer, like rock star.
And Easton, she did awesome too. Did she get any?
And she got
neutral solutions. Oh, this is the litmus paper one.
Okay, so this one had 3 parts to it. That it said, what do acids, bases, and neutral solutions do to the litmus paper? And so many of the kids just went right by the neutral.
Right.
They didn't. Okay. That it doesn't do anything. So
that's different
because that's,
than with this one. Just let's put that over there. All right, let's see Derek. Derek's
crazy boy.
Derek. Scientists safely tell that any solution is a salt in water or sugar in water. Do you think that kind of fits with?
Well,
with
and the
this,
thing is that we don't really talk about the electrical conductivity of a solution.
Right.
We don't do that as an experiment.
Right.
So that's something that they have to read on their own and use as a characteristic of salt in water is conductive, whereas sugar in water is not.
And that doesn't really fit with it.
No. But that's one of those things that.
And it wasn't covered explicitly.
Right, and I didn't cover it explicitly. I didn't do a lab on it.
Yeah.
But the things but the conclusion we can come to is that the stuff that we did do the labs on, the more visual I made it, the better. And all I would have to say, if they had a question, I'd say, remember the litmus paper and what happened to it, or remember the pH, or when I gave it today, oh, there was a question.
This is Eden's.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Well, in this one, and Eden wrote me a little note here. It says, liquid is a solution in general terms, not scientifically. Or am I wrong? And I wrote back to her, I said, not always, because water is a liquid. And water is just a chemical compound between hydrogen. I'm sorry, I'm like...
No, they're very reflective.
Nerdy,
no, they're very reflective. I mean, that right there.
That
is
she's
really thinking.
She goes above, right?
Yeah.
And which I love. I mean, and okay, so yes, this is an overachiever, but and I yell at them. Okay, yes, I do yell at them. I said this when they give me a sentence. I'm like, this is not an essay answer. This is a sentence. And if they don't give their punctuation, I take a half a point. I'm sorry. You're in 8th grade. This is a formal assignment. No matter what, you're giving it to a teacher. You can't act as though you're texting. And I just said that on somebody's paper that they put you for you and cause for because. And I'm like,
right.
Like,
so then, Elizabeth, let's look at this one and see if we can match any others that might need.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Might need this work. Okay. So what question? That was question number 28.
Not everybody answered that one.
Yeah,
the differences between solutions, colloids, and suspensions are based on if it can be filtered easily. scatter light, and or see there she's got the characteristics
Yep.
or ability to see through it.
Yep.
The solution is a mixture containing a solvent and at least one solute.
Yep.
A colloid is a mixture containing small undissolved particles that do not settle out and scatters light. Finally, a suspension. Love that. There you go. A suspension is a mixture with particles that can easily see, and they're listening
great.
to me.
They do,
They're
and all of
writing
their
in paragraphs,
vocabulary and
and they're
pieces.
putting the.
Yep. Good. All
So
right,
I think the
that
only
one's-
thing that was made, in conclusion, I think the main thing is that once acid and base neutralize, they create
right.
that
Where's
salt
the other
and
ones?
water, because that was a common thread. Again, I haven't had an opportunity to correct all these, so
Let's see.
we'll have to
Oh,
talk.
28. Here we go. The solution, unlike both colors, has had its solute fully dissolved into the mixture. Yep. The solute does not scatter. The solute doesn't. In a color, okay. In a color. The solute has dissolved.
But the undissolved particles scatter light
A suspension contains
Contains-
undissolved particles. Yes.
that simply float around it. But I'd question
Yeah,
this one.
this one right
the
there, that one,
solute
yeah.
does not scatter light.
Right.
Okay, that one I'd put a question mark behind and say, what do
Yeah.
you mean by that?
So maybe you put that one with that one too.
The colloid scatters light.
Yeah, the color, and maybe it
And
was
that's-
just
that
the,
was a
the
matter of-
writing.
right,
Maybe they didn't
exactly.
reread it or something like that. But we looked at Ryan's. All right, awesome, great. So for our next steps,
But the thing is
with
that
them.
I love the humor. For
I
for
know.
each solution, I would give myself an exclusive piece of both red and blue litmus paper in order to define whether this. I mean, and this is these kids just being silly for me because they know I appreciate it. And that one that said that the suspension would just hang out and
hang
knock
out, right?
on
It would
there.
just be
was
hanging
so
out.
cute.
'Cause it
And then there
won't
was
go
another
in, yeah.
snarky note about a sister, and I'm like, oh, sisters be nice. On the pH scale,
Right.
Evie would be 14 because she's so basic. And I'm like, oh, sisters. But isn't that good? But is it, I mean, but the fact that she's using
They're
my
so
science,
reflective.
I mean,
They
that's
are.
making that connection
They
to
do.
be snarky to her sister. That's awesome.
Right, right.
I praise them for that.
So we have some discussions with some groups about
But that's
the
a lot of
salt.
information. It's not easy.
Oh yeah, about the salt and the water. I know that was a few
Uh-huh.
of them that I saw this afternoon, and then just their pieces of understanding in a couple of the questions.
Yeah.
So then the next steps. What are you feeling? When do you feel this can happen for? We'll get to Marcella in just a second, but
So what do you mean?
when do you feel that you will be able to?
I would do this one-on-one. You mean
Yeah.
not as a class?
Like tomorrow, yeah. What are you thinking? I don't know.
If I can't, I have archery tonight, so I don't know if I can correct all these. But I will do my best to correct them and get them back to the kids tomorrow, which would be fair. Depends. Y'all. Anyway, because they want that feedback and they need that feedback right away.
Right.
If I don't see a pattern, I will just simply do it one-on-one. But I'm thinking already about next time,
Right.
and I want to survey the kids to find out how they think it's going. And again, we have to be careful. Just footnote that these kids are very vocal, and they will, especially the 8th grade, we call it 8th grade-itis. And they love to trash you if you give them an opportunity to, which I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So I have to be careful how they present me. I have to be careful how I present questions. Like, I think I wrote it in here on the working document, a survey to ask the kids or to talk with them
Right.
is, what do you like?
Right.
And then, so what do you like? What do you like about how we're doing science differently? Is there anything that you'd, what do you like? And any suggestions? Question mark. Not what would you change, but any suggestions and what do you like, to keep it on as positive as possible. And the way I go about it and presenting that question is huge as well, because they get really like, this is bogus. And so
okay, so that's great. So then you'll meet with them and fill those little holes. So what are you feeling about?
I'm gonna do this one-on-one to catch her up. She was absent so much, and yeah, she could benefit from small group, and so she could benefit from the one-on-one teacher.
Absolutely.
But that's why, and at first when we started this, the fact that we didn't do any mini lessons to find out,
Right.
okay,
How
you guys
it
want
can be.
control and that you want to go faster,
Right.
have at it.
Right.
And those kids that said, I'm going to get through 3 lessons this week.
Right.
And guess what? They're going slower than when I present the information and drive my little things and bring out my bones and whatever I'm doing. But I think rather than, again, giving it all on them, me doing mini lessons, and for people who really need it,
Right.
that one-on-one, like this person on this book, she's just gonna need that one-on-one to catch her up because
Absolutely.
she's far behind because she was absent.
Okay.
And because this is her perception of herself right now, we got to get rid of that.
I know.
We've got to get rid of that. And I have and the fact that she had confidence in me
Absolutely.
to voice this is huge. That speaks volumes.
Right.
So I will definitely go out of my way to help her because she wants the help.
Right.
And then in the future, I asked her is there anybody that you would work well with, and she looked around and said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I don't really know. So that's just boop.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on her.
Yeah, good.
And with you in the room, that is huge because
Right.
that allows me to do the one-on-one while you are floating around and answering the other questions and going, where's the teacher's manual, Elizabeth? I don't know the answer to number 3. It's awesome. It's so funny. I leave it open just for Carla. She's like,
you.
what happens with the acid down? What color is it? We have so much fun.
So then I'm thinking too, after our cycle's done, how will you be
it
able
can't
to
ever be done.
No. How do you foresee this process kind of working out? And
Oh, you mean the whole
Like
the
with-
groups, how we're doing
yeah.
it? Well, you know what? See a need, fill a need.
Mm-hmm.
If it continues to work, great. And then we had that concern about the kids who are self-motivated, intrinsically motivated, and already halfway through the next book. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but are so far ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got this struggling,
and then
we've got the ones. And in our original plan was to get them ready for high school because they will be divided as far as their ability.
Right.
So we wanted to accelerate for the other kids. That's the lost piece. So what are we going to do to give them extra things to do? So I give them that. I make my lab books available to them and say pick a lab that goes with this. Or you and I were talking about that, some kind
that
of
research
web,
type thing.
some research type thing. I want them to be personally interested in it. I don't want them to do it just because they're going through the motions. I want them to get excited about what they're researching.
Right.
So we're going to be talking about waves, sound waves, light waves. Are we talking about, sound and light, and do we do water? But there's a lot of fun stuff in here. We do some waves. I have a ton of slinkies. So like the kids that are already through some of this, you know, what do we do? What do we have them do? And that's what we were talking about. And maybe look at the teacher's manual for the extended activities, or have them come up with a lab. Okay, look at this.
Right.
Here's slinkies. Here's some rope. Show me amplitude, crest, trough, and the different types of wavelengths. The longitudinal wave as opposed to traverse wave. Show me.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
here's a slinky.
Right.
You say you know it. Show me.
Mm-hmm.
You're through this lesson, so show me. What did you learn?
Yep.
Here's a slinky. Tell me what you know. What's a traverse? Show me a traverse wave. Show me a longitudinal
No
wave.
idea what that is.
Right. But my point is, and then,
They would know it. Yes.
and Carl and I were curious to know if they got the solute solvent thing. So we didn't know. Again, this was like
Right.
totally like we're gonna try something new. So when we did, and I made up that quiz. Before I even did any mini lessons, let's see what they know.
Yeah.
Okay, so here they've been working on their own for 2 days and doing this bookwork and filling in, and we've been meandering. What do they know? So I made up that pop quiz, gave them various examples of solutes. No, it was solvents and solutes, and they had to tell me what the solute was, what the solvent was, and tell me if it was a colloid suspension or solution. And we learned some very interesting things that many of them did get it, many of them didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah.
And so you just read all that, and that was the main idea of all of it, and you can't even use it practically with real stuff. Back up mini lesson, and that's what we did.
Yep. Yeah.
And then once we did the final test of like 11, I had 11 different samples that I created, and they all rocked it. And the kids who missed it, like were absent, I just left them out and said, okay, verbally tell me. You don't have to write this. And that way I don't have to correct it, you know, that you have it or not. And they told me, and what is it? And some kids said that, and it was good because I had them explain why they thought it was what it was.
Right.
And see, a solution can also be a colloid, but they would have to explain it to me. And through their explanation, if they had a rational reason why they thought it was a colloid rather than a solution, then I knew that they got the concept, that give it to them. don't. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It
Right.
didn't have to be, because there is, little gray areas sometimes.
Good. So we know what the data is saying right now with where we need to fill
And
in
so
a
far,
little
so
bit.
good.
So far, so good. And we just need to do some little tweaks.
Right.
And
And in the whole thing of accelerating it for the kids who, going through the book, then I find, okay, and we talked to Carla, I'm like, what's my role? So now these kids are going to teach themselves science. Okay, what happens to me? I'm just going to help the strugglers? No, I've got to encourage the kids and go above and beyond. And I know that's a personal weakness. I'm really good at catching up those strugglers, but when it comes to accelerating for the bigger kids, for the kids that need acceleration, that's where I fall short. And that's when I go, Carla, what can we do with these kids that are like learning this too quickly? And then it's not practical. It's just book work, and they're not doing it. I'm like, okay, so that's why we have to have them create something. What that is, we're going to create
figure it out.
We're going to help them create. We're going to create what they have to create. But that's just us working together. That's what, and it's working. It's really fun.
It is. It is so fun. Okay, good. So, just to recap, we're going to be you're going to be working with the little holes,
Right.
finishing them,
Making
continuing
that
to
they
monitor.
understand like the big picture.
Which
they mostly
to
do.
monitor our little outliers that are struggling and making sure that they understand.
Yeah.
can
And just
get
catch
from
her
there.
up, and I can do that one-on-one, and I don't, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And is there anybody else like her? No.
Yeah.
No, there isn't right now.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I'll pull her.
Very good. So we did our red flags. We identified your instructional strategies that are going to improve the achievement. And so then next time we meet, we're going to discuss and talk further about those outliers that they're really high, and then we can touch on
Right. I know what I'm gonna do with her. It's the kids
the
that
high. We'll be thinking about that.
and like create project. Like, right. We have to create something for them to do. To go, and I don't want them to be sitting behind a computer either.
Right. Something hands-on.
I
Something
like
active.
the hands-on. I like, but we what we can do is you and I can look it up
Yep.
and find how do we enrich this,
Yeah.
and have them. I don't know. I think they're presentation to death. They've had to do so many presentations for other classes that. I don't know.
And maybe just presenting it with their group or just with you or something like that, just to kind of get the other kids understanding it too.
Because the best way you learn stuff is if you
It's
teach
teaching
it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just some thoughts. Good. Well, this is good, Elizabeth. I know you probably have to get back.
Yeah, I'm good.
To what time is it? I don't even know.
I'm good. I don't even
What is
know.
it? It's 1:30. Oh, so we have 15 more minutes. So, do you want it? What do you want? Do you want to go further and think, or because we've answered the questions that I had for our purpose of our meeting?
Okay.
Or do you want to look at the other quiz?
questions, like as to our train of thought?
Do you want to look at the other quiz? Can you guys give us feedback yet, or no?
Feedback just on the
For any
content piece. Yeah, if anyone if you guys have stuff you want to share. I mean, our focus obviously is the coaching, but
right. But having it kind of just thought with those high kids, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and that's just going to be us.
what I would ask you, Elizabeth, is I think you named some qualities that you know, what is going to make it a good and successful extension activity for the kids, and maybe start with that. What qualities should it have?
Well, it should answer the questions of the lesson, like the objective. Each lesson starts off with these big questions. Okay, like it has to answer these. What forms mechanical waves? Show me, tell me, prove to me that you know what forms a mechanical wave. What are the types of mechanical waves? Okay, just listing them off. Again, anybody can read out of a book and list things off, but show me what are the types of mechanical waves. Not only name them, show me how to create them.
So I'm hearing you say it has to be obviously directly still tied to the content they're doing.
Right. Oh, so that extra
show
piece.
it. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just pushing you to think about what do you think will make a successful extension activity?
I don't know.
If you
Like I
start with
said,
those
it's
questions, then
it's
you
my
can.
weakness, and as long as they, what I ultimately want them to do, I mean, every teacher's dream is for them to use this information, kind of like that kid making that funny comment about her sister. Okay, granted it wasn't science, but she used that. She understood the concept of it and used it for a joke. Use this. How does this affect us every day?
Okay, so application in a novel setting.
Right. Application of the content that you just learned about.
I think you also mentioned creation. Like if a student can create the ways, that's the highest level of thinking.
Right, and they can because I've got all kinds of stuff in my room that you can create
Right.
waves with.
And that would be my suggestion: is think of those different levels of thinking
Okay.
and take it to that highest level where we know if they actually create something or if they evaluate something and say whether it is that wave or not and the why behind it. That would
be perfect. The why, and like the why behind it.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
so that kind of
solution
gets
can
to
also be
depth
a-
of knowledge. And I don't know how much you know about that you can share with her of just that how to take that to the higher level thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you know the kind of components of higher level thinking and just embed that into the content,
Yeah.
you'll get your enrichment activity.
Okay, so the higher level thinking, what's that form? What do you always talk about it, don't you? The higher level thinking thing. Okay, well, Bloom, is it a Bloom?
I'm talking of
taxonomy thing?
Norman Webb of DOK, which is
Okay.
depth of knowledge.
The depth of knowledge. Okay.
Yeah, I've
Thank
talked
you.
about it with the elementary, but I
Okay.
haven't shared it with you guys yet.
Okay. Well, I know, and I'm familiar with it too.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
So using that, creating it, and then explaining it, and why, and not only why it is one type of way, why it isn't the other type of way, other type of way of wave. And some of these kids that are so accelerated are extremely creative. Yeah. So do I give them parameters or do I let them go? Like last year. What?
Project-based learning.
Well, right, and so they could pick. Okay, right, but then I stumble and falter as to how do I evaluate that? How do I monitor it? I'd have to create a rubric. What exactly do I want them to be producing? That's true.
This is
And
what I wanted you to show me.
you figure how, like
You
last
have that
year.
rubric, creating rubrics book.
Yeah.
That might be a good start because it has suggestions from different contents.
Right.
So it might even have some project-based learning rubrics in it.
Right.
That
And
she
this-
could maybe
What did you
start
have
with and be able to tweak.
from Buck Institute? You guys had rubrics.
I don't know.
Inquiry model.
I'll have to look at that book again.
Yeah, I'm willing to
I don't
guess
know.
for
That was like a
project based. I
whirlwind.
mean, there's
Yeah.
because you don't want it to be specific to content, right? You want it to be general. That if one kid's doing this and one kid's doing that, one kid's doing the other, it's the same rubric.
Right.
And I'm guessing that some version or versions exist. There's lots of stuff out there, and then if you
Oh,
want
heck
to
yeah.
tweak it, but you don't need to.
So do I do that for
Yeah.
everybody? Does everybody have to create a project, or am I just doing this for?
What would your
See a need, fill a need. Exactly. And that's how I this kid who desperately needs me one-on-one because she missed so much, of course, I'm not going to put more on her plate. But the kid who's gone to already 2 lessons of the new book, that kid needs the extra. And plus the rest of the class who's working as well. Right, could create the project. And last year we made a musical instrument, and they had to make the parameters were you had to make an instrument and you had to I have it on my laptop. You had to play a song, a recognizable song, and you had to manipulate the length of the column to have it change the sound, the length of the air column. And so that was it. Come up with something. And so some kids and some kids were just floundering, and I have videos that are so funny. So I gave them, and they just sit, and you know how some kids are like, great idea, and go, and some kids are like, I don't have a clue what she wants. I'm like, well, there's beakers